Hello. Hopefully, this will go well. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Brooklyn Lou. I'm an atheist. I used to be an evangelical Christian for many years, but at this point in my life, I'm an atheist. I'd like to chat with people about, why they believe and why they may not believe anymore. Here's a link. I'm going to post it here. Hey, Austin, how you doing? Let me post a link here. Nice to have you join, Austin. Appreciate anyone in the discussions I have. I like to be friendly. I also like to hear out what people have to say. I prefer not to cut people off. Right? I want to hear what they have to say and understand it. If I don't understand something, I will ask a question. All right. The thing is, sometimes when you're discussing things, people talk over each other, and that gets really difficult, because you talk over each other, no one learns anything. I actually like to learn something when I'm talking to people. I don't like to feel I know it all. All right. And I also appreciate people to maybe stop and try to hear out what I have to say. All right. I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm not a scientist, just kind of a regular guy, but I have a lot of life experience and I love to chat. So I left a link in the top of the dialogue, the chat room, and if you click on there, it'll bring you right into the chat room, and I can see you, and I can correspond with you. Right. Um, I did study the Bible years ago. Haven't been into it for about non sequitur. You can go ahead and make some coffee. I have a brand new Dr. Pepper here, and this is a brand new flavor. It's a blackberry flavored Dr. Pepper. The first time I'm ever trying it with zero sugar. I kind of like it. It tastes pretty good. But not a Bible scholar, not a philosopher, just a regular guy. I am well read in the Bible, but I haven't read it actually for probably 10 years because I've been an atheist for about 10 years. But I had studied the Bible and I had read it. I've read the whole thing. But sometimes if I'm quoting the Bible, if you have a Bible with you, that may help. All right. It could help bring you to the passage that I might be thinking about, right? Because I don't have a Bible with me, but I purely go by memory of something that I read 10 years ago. Okay. But, anyone who is brave enough wants to chat about why you think you might be on the right path in life. And most importantly, today, I wanted to talk about where you get your morality from. How did you come to understand the morals that you have at this point in time? And things that you might think are important when it comes to morality. Flute whistle. Glad to hear it. I always like to hear about people who are atheists only because I'm atheist. So it gives me someone else to relate to. All right. Most of the people in my life are Christians. Most of the people I talk to are Christians. I don't belong to any atheist community per se. So anytime I speak with an atheist, It's a welcome thing. Non sequitur. Here you are. I'm going to put you in. Okay, you hear me?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I had to mute the video so I don't get it twice, on repeat there. Hey, what's happening, bro?
How you doing?
Good. I know. I saw you post in the one of the groups that the Christian apologist group, and I was like, oh, I was going to do a stream later on, but I was like, this dude wants to talk about morality. I was like, yeah, well, that's a subject I have a little bit of interest in.
That's cool.
I was just like, oh, maybe the live chat can ask some questions because I happen to like moral theories, and so I just wanted to discuss, like, what is your moral perspective? I am not an atheist. I'm not a theist. I tend to more objectivism, which is more realism. I am a moral cognitivist. I tend to value pluralism. I tend to even some degree moral universalism. So, when we're talking about morality and ethics, I see a huge disconnect between how people view actual moral theory and what they put in these Facebook groups. And so I was hoping, maybe we can chat on that or see what the live chat has to say for a few minutes. If that's
the live chat, I try to take a peek over, but mostly if I'm talking, I try to speak with the person, that I'm speaking to. Right now it's you. All right. The thing about, I just want to ask you for my own understanding. You said you're not an atheist. You're not a theist.
Correct.
Agnostic? You don't know.
Exactly. Yes. Well, no, it's not a matter of knowledge, right? I mean, this is a gross misunderstanding that I see a lot of people in these Facebook groups have, especially modern day in contemporary analytical philosophy. The term agnostic refers to the epistemic disposition of not having a position either way. It means that you don't believe the proposition and you do not believe the negation of the proposition. It has absolutely no relevancy, at least towards the ontological question of God's existence, whether God exists or not. In other words, it's just basically undecided. It means you don't take a position on the position of God existing or not existing. That's how the term is used in academia extensively, like normatively. So when people say, oh, well, you're agnostic and you don't know, they're using it in a very different epistemological sense that does exist, but it's extremely, extremely rare anymore.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Would you think like I do? It's just something I feel. You can be agnostic and still be Christian or Islamic or something like that. Do you agree with that? That you can kind of both?
No, it would be a contradiction. The reason being is when you're a Christian or a Muslim, you've taken a position on the proposition. So let's say the proposition is God exists, right? Simple. Just and let's assume a non-classical schema. And what I mean by that is that it not necessarily dealing with some kind of God that has some intervention with people, right? In the classical schema, a theist is somebody who has a personalized God, right? But in the non-classical schema, it's anybody who believes in a divine being that we'll call it some kind of divinity or divine being or God. And that's how I use it in my arguments. When I write my papers on the subject, I use God very, very globally to mean any kind of deity, not specifically the Christian or Islamic or Jewish God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Abraham, Isaac, and Joseph. Jacob. Yeah, Jacob. I don't usually mean that specific God. And so if we just do a reductivist approach and say the proposition that God exists, the Christians take a stand on that. They say, yes, there's a deity that exists. I'll call him Yahweh. I'll call him Allah. I'll call him whatever they want. But they take a position. But the agnostic says, I'm not convinced either way there is such a being that exists that has an intentional state that created the entire universe. So I think that's a contradiction in terms. And I did write a paper on that to show that logically it really is, at least semantically, that it is.
Let me ask you something. I've personally identified myself as an agnostic atheist, and tell me if you have a problem with this, and I'll explain why I call myself that. All right, I call myself an agnostic atheist because I understand the term agnostic to mean having knowledge of, like a more concrete understanding that you can test and prove. So I don't know personally if there is a God anywhere in the universe, or if you believe in multiverses, maybe outside of our universe, but I'm not sure about that. So I call myself agnostic. I call myself atheist because I definitely know that I don't believe in a God. So I use the term atheist. Now, is anything you find wrong with that?
Yeah, massively. And matter of fact, two things. One, I'm actually co-writing a paper with Kyle Alexander on this very topic. And two, it was my arguments that changed Matt Dillahunty's mind on this particular topic. He used to identify as agnostic atheist. My arguments had convinced him that it is nonsensical. He no longer identifies as agnostic atheist because the phrase is at least philosophically nonsensical. Now, there are extremely, how should I say this? I don't want to say extremely. There are technical reasons why it is nonsensical, but it is probably beyond the scope of this conversation. But I think the term agnostic atheist logically cannot be used in a coherent epistemic way. I've had atheists try. I've had people that know logic try, and every time they try to make a logical schema where the phrase agnostic atheist can be expressed using formal logic in a way that's non-ambiguous, they've always failed. And so, yes, I have a massive dislike for agnostic atheists, and I have many arguments out there against it. I mean, I'm pretty well known for being on the forefront of argumentation against that.
On that,
yeah, that's why I say Matt Dillahunty even agrees with my arguments on that. And he hates me.
Let me ask you something, and it doesn't matter to me because I could be wrong about how I'm classifying myself, and it doesn't ultimately matter, other than I might change the way what I call myself, right?
Yeah, your label, your moniker.
Yeah, of course. But but I look at the words, and my mind goes to definitions a lot. All right, it's kind of just the way I.
Well, let me ask you this: you say definitions, and another thing I wrote on about definitions. Definitions in English are descriptive; they're not prescriptive because English is not a prescribed language. So when you're referring to definitions, all you're doing is saying this definition describes my position. It doesn't mean if you meet the definition, if you meet the requirements of that definition, you fall into that category. That's a fallacy that I actually came up with years ago, that you're trying to coax a prescriptive definition from a descriptive one, and it doesn't work. So just because you match some general, what's called sensu lato usage of a dictionary, which is generally what's called synchronic, meaning how a word is used right now rather than diachronic, which is over time, that means that you're just being identified as, oh, this matches what my belief is. So if I say that the position of an atheist is somebody who believes there's no God, does that match your position? Do you believe there's no God?
That matches my position.
Oh, I'm sorry, my headphones went out. Go ahead.
That matches my position.
Yeah. So why do you need even the agnostic modifier, right? Because you're mixing epistemology with ontology. The term agnostic, if you're going to use it as knowledge, has no relevance really to what people are asking you about your beliefs, right? Because if I say, hey, does God exist? I really don't care whether you claim to know it or not. I want to know what your belief state is, right? And I say, do you believe there's a God? A theist would say yes, correct? And an atheist would say no. And then the agnostic says, I have no position either way. So they're mutually exclusive positions. So why would you want to take the position away from the agnostic who says, I have no position either way, and say, oh, I'm just going to throw that under atheism? When, of course, the atheist in philosophy is somebody who does assert there is no God. That's standard. That's absolutely standard. In every college in the universe that teaches on the planet, it teaches that as normative.
I don't really make that assertion only because I feel uncomfortable speaking to things I have no knowledge of. So
but these are beliefs, right? But these aren't knowledge. We have beliefs all the time.
The belief is I'm absolutely sure I don't believe in a God. So
right. But no, that's not. But that's not sufficient to be an atheist in philosophy. That only gets you to non-theism. To get the sufficiency condition for atheism is that you're convinced there are no gods. That's the sufficiency condition. So are you convinced there are no gods? Or do you reserve judgment? You what's called suspend judgment, and you have no position either way. As a matter of fact, if you're giving, go ahead.
Personally, I only speak for myself.
That's what I can't speak for. Yeah.
Yeah. When I talk to people, everyone has their own ideas. So I can only express what I feel,
Sure.
For me, I don't believe in any gods.
But what do you believe? Not what you don't believe. We all don't believe in a lot of things, right? I don't believe in Christianity. I don't believe in Islam. I want to know what your belief is, right? So do you believe that the universe contains zero gods? Is that a belief that you're convinced of?
Yeah, and in terms of God meaning supernatural deities, of course, but yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. See, you're an atheist. So Yeah.
I don't ever doubt that.
Yeah. But see, but you're not an atheist because you don't believe there's a God. You're an atheist because you hold the position there are no gods. That's the sufficiency condition. So why do you want to mix that with the position of, oh, I don't have a position either way? See, my position is I don't have a position either way. Your position is you believe there are no gods. We don't have the same position. Why would they both be under atheism then? Right? That makes sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's how you parse out the words, right? Agnostic, like your definition. Yes, I'm an atheist, right? So I mean, yeah. But other people you talk to, they take these words slightly differently, maybe than you're taking them.
Oh, that's true. But I'm using the academic sense of the words, right? So,
Yeah.
but again, why do you want to throw in that phrase agnostic atheist? It's ambivalent. It's completely ambiguous.
Well, I'll tell you why I do it.
Okay, but let me just say this: there's no university out there that has a standard of what that phrase means. It is completely made up. It was made up back years ago on Usenet. You have these what's called 4-quadrant models. It has no academic standing. It makes no sense epistemologically. It makes no sense logically, but atheists run with it and say, oh, I'm an agnostic atheist. But if you go look at the wiki page, even they say there's no citations for this. There's nobody teaches this in academia. It makes no sense. But why do you use a phrase that nowhere in the academic literature is it really used? It exists, but that's beside the point. It exists for other reasons. So
I'm not an academic, right? So,
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not an academic. So
right. But
understand that.
But here's the thing. Brooklyn. If you're talking to a creationist, right? And I assume you denounce young earth creationism, right?
Yeah, I don't believe in that. No.
But no, you believe. It's not that you don't believe in it. You believe that is BS, right?
Yes.
Yes, I do too, right? I absolutely do, right? It's not merely I lack a belief in creationism. It is, it's absolutely BS, right? So, when we're talking about biology and when we're talking about evolutionary processes to a creationist, do we not use academic standards? Why would it be any different for philosophy? I use academic standards across the board. Why is it that they will for philosophy and physics and science, but when it comes to academic standards for philosophy, a lot of atheists just throw it right out the window, and I don't understand that.
Well, I only speak for myself, right? What is your academic level, or do you have degrees in?
I have 4 years. I have 4 years of college. I graduated from Naval Nuclear Power School. I have supervisory qualifications for 2 nuclear reactor systems. I have some education. I've taken some, logic for informal logic courses. But I'm actually well known for writing logical papers against uses of certain terms. Like one of my papers is against Dr. Flu's 1974 paper. It's still in the top 3% on academic EDU. It's been reviewed by several well-known academics. And so, I don't buy into credentialism, right? You don't have to be credentialed to have a basic understanding of these topics and be able to discuss them, right?
Right.
But I am pretty well known for having a good handle on these topics.
Right. Well, from my perspective, even doing this channel, which is new to me, right? I'm not someone who's been on here a long time, but I'm not trying to necessarily appeal to high-level academics. All right. I'm kind of trying to appeal to regular folk. All right. And my own education is high school. Okay. So now I don't think of course I've read and I've studied things like the Bible, and I've studied evolution on my own. Right. So I don't have a degree in these.
I took biology in college. Yes.
Right. So I don't want to claim to be an expert in any field. Right. But I'm trying to appeal to just regular people. And what I find is sometimes if I say I'm an atheist, they give me this whole big thing that they think that I believe or don't believe in. And it's really just something they've been told.
Well, so what though? I mean, teach them what atheism is. I mean, I have videos about atheology. I teach people about atheism. If somebody has misconstrued something about atheism and they get it wrong, explain it to them correctly. I mean, there's no reason to hide yourself from that. For example, like I'm not an atheist, but I belong to the Satanic Temple. Right? I'm a TST, right? Because I believe in their secularist approach. Right? That's it. And so if people misrepresent TST, I will explain to them, no, that's not what TST believes. They don't believe in a being called Satan, right? And so why don't you just promote atheism in the academic sense? And they say, look, there is no God. Let me explain to you why. There's perfectly justifiable reasons why you can make that claim. I have a video on the top 10 reasons why Christianity is false. I make that claim. I don't do it globally because, again, my positions are very, very nuanced. But I denounce the Christian God as far as that, at least as far as most people's perspective of it. There might be some version of it that's true. But when I talk to a theist, I mean, come on, most of them have contradictions. They can argue all they want from, their faith. But when it comes down to the actual argumentation of the existence of God, there's some problems there. You and I probably both agree with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I may stop using, just from our conversation right now, okay, I may stop using the term I normally describe myself as, which I normally would say I'm an agnostic atheist, but I could understand.
That'd be great. I mean, like I said, Mike, that's a pet peeve of mine. That's all.
And that's kind of not necessary, right?
Yeah. It just throws in a monkey wrench because it's ambiguous. I don't know what your position is. If you just say you're an atheist, okay, great. He believes there's no God. He's convinced. Let's then move forward, right? If you say you're agnostic atheist, I'm like, what are you agnostic about? What is it you're waving on? Being uncommittal on? What is it you're unsure your beliefs?
I've always felt that, like, here's something I know I cannot do. I cannot prove there is no God.
Okay.
I don't even attempt to prove
so what? That's logical positivism. Nobody says you have to prove there's a God or there's no God to be believed, to have a rationalized belief. I believe that I believe that the Riemann hypothesis is true. I believe the trim prime conjecture is true. I can't prove them mathematically. If I could, I'd be famous. But I believe they're true. Most mathematicians believe they're true. You can have a belief on things that you don't have to prove or cannot even be proven. In fact, we have bits all the time of things that we can't prove.
That's where I've swung myself into using that word. So that I was hoping people can understand.
Yeah.
That I'm not attempting to prove their
right. Exactly. But you can still say, hey, look, Islam. I believe Islam is false. Allah doesn't exist according to the Islamic view. The Prophet did not splice the moon in half, kind of thing, right? On a winged horse. I believe very strongly that never happened. I don't have to prove anything to have that belief and justify it. You just have to have justifiable reasons to why you have a specific conviction. That's it. It's a very rational view.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, two.
That's non sequitur.
Yeah, it used to be a very popular podcast back in the day. It had about 1 million iTunes downloads.
Right, but right now, if I go to Non Sequitur Show, that would be your channel.
Yeah, or Steve McRae. I like both of them. I have Steve McRae and the Non Sequitur Show. I might do a show coming up here. I have some guests that want to come on, but I'm not really here to promote my stuff because I don't really care.
Yeah, no,
it's just my stuff is not really, my stuff's pretty niche nowadays, so I don't really have a large following like I used to have. I mean, I've been mentioned in Forbes.com, I've been mentioned in Wikipedia, I mentioned in peer review papers. I gave that all. I don't want to deal with any of that. I just want to be on the grass level like I used to be, having these types of conversations, and I don't give a crap who listens, who doesn't listen. Well, I like the one-on-ones, my favorite,
Do you have a access right now? You're watching me on YouTube?
No, I just have you on StreamYards.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, so
if you
I
can,
found it, sure.
For my own, because when I'm on here, I don't remember everything, right? So
yeah.
What if you can put in my YouTube comment, your channel, and I'll subscribe.
Well, I can't do links because I'm not a mod, but I can put in the name of the channel.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I'll find it for sure. It's just a reminder to myself when I go back, maybe tomorrow, and then I'll subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to both. I got two, but right now I'm just like on my main channel. I just do mostly Twitter hangouts and logic videos, like how to explain logical rules of inference, things of that nature, and then like I went to standalone videos rather than like live discussions. But we used to have like I did the debate with Arn Ra and Kent Hovind. When you know who Arn Ra is?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know who Kent Hovind is? Yeah. My channel was one that finally hosted them, and it had like 750,000 views or some crap. I go way back with Arn. I go back with Kent Hovind. So I'm all this stuff's still out there, and people still watch it. But like I said, I'm more interested in just having these types of regular conversations rather than formal debates, because they're just time consuming. And I think people like you that are just starting out, that are, getting into the discussions, I think is wonderful. We need more people doing it. My advice to you is highly recommend this. And I highly, highly do recommend this, man. If you're going to talk about atheism, morality, learn the topics from the academic point of view. If not, theists are going to walk all over you, because they do learn the academic point of view, right? They know.
I don't think I've ever had a theist walk all over me.
When it comes to moral conversations, well, then you're fortunate, because I mean, let's dive into morality, because that was your topic, right? Unless somebody else wants to come on. What is you're a moral cognitivist, or you're a moral non-cognitivist, a moral realist, moral subjectivist, a relativist? What is your moral positions?
Here's the thing. I'm a guy from Brooklyn. I don't classify myself in these categories. If I'm asked a question, I can answer it directly. Right? Like I don't go, oh, I am, fall in this.
Yeah, no, I got that. No, I understand that. So let's ask a question. Do you think that the proposition stealing is wrong is something that it could be true or false?
I tend to think, yes, it can be true or false.
Okay. So in philosophy, there's a term for that. You don't have to adopt it, but there's a term for that. It's called moral cognitivist. Big word, I know, but that's what it's called, right? If you think a proposition can be true or false when it deals with morality, you think there is a moral fact of the matter to be had that can be true or false. I happen to agree with you, by the way, on that. I'm a moral cognitivist. But there are people out there that are moral non-cognitivists. They don't think that proposition even represents anything that's true or false. They go to what's called expressivism, or there's emotivism, descriptivism, and there's nothing wrong with those approaches per se. I find obviously some very, very technical issues with them, but I'm not going to get into those. But at least you have a position, right? You say, okay, yes, these things can be true or false. And you say, okay, what makes them true or false, right? What's the thing that makes a proposition true or false? And that goes into what's called moral ontology.
Yeah, well, it's a big word, but it gets into what you're basing your morality on.
Correct. Right.
And I can explain what I base my morality on.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll do mine too. Yeah, absolutely. What do you base morality on?
Throw it into, well, I'm a blah, 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 blah.
That's fine. Yeah, you don't have to use the nomenclature. I'm just telling you, if you ever want to get into philosophy, that's what these terms would be called, right? If you're interested.
Yeah.
But what do you ground them in?
I mean, what I understand of philosophy, and again, I try to stick to, my own opinions. Philosophy to me is something that helps us to understand how we think, or create, why we may think something, and is it grounded in some particular philosophy?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
But philosophy doesn't conclude anything that I see.
Well, yes and no, but here's the thing. Philosophy gives you the framework to do things like have knowledge, to have truth, to have induction, to have deduction. And I noticed somebody in your live chat's like, oh, he's just using linguistic flourishes or whatever. Look, if you want to come up, Austin, and take my place, by all means. But I try to educate people, and that's what I do. I have a blog on epistemology. I have 3,000 videos. So if somebody wants to learn, they can. And Brooklyn here seems to be very inquisitive and wants to learn these things. But if not, that's fine too. But
understand, Steve, I like to learn.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, no, I respect that.
But I don't take learning as being the ultimate authority. You know what I'm saying? It's like I still live a common sense, regular life.
Yeah, you tell what's called pragmatism, which is cool too.
Like if you go on the street and you start talking to people and you say, well, I'm Aristotle, I'm for Aristotle.
Right. No, I get you. And I understand that.
Nobody gives a darn, right?
but if a theist, right? And like I said, I mean, I do some pretty high level discussions. So if you want to reach that level where you're going to be taking seriously, where you're going to have the conversations with the high end players, it's inevitable. You're going to have to learn the language they use, man. You're going to have to. If you don't have interest in that, that's fine.
I really don't have an interest in that. You know why? Because to me, that's like elitism, and I don't need to. I'm very much a free player.
Is it though? I mean, look, when you talk to a creationist, right? Is it elitism to tell them that the Earth is billions of years old, and you have scientific studies that can show that? Is that elitism?
No, but
then what's the difference?
I could do all that without without trying to make myself something that I'm not.
You don't have to be something you're not. You just have to be informed of how these terms are used in these types of discussions, right? Because these players, these theists, and I talked to many of them. I mean, I've been on the shows. I mean, I was been on the Crucible with Andrew Wilson from the Whatever podcast, right? I was just talking to him today. He's a high level player. If you want to be able to engage with him on that level, which you may necessarily don't want to do, but you never know. You might reach that stage, man. You seem like a smart guy.
I'll tell you how you reach that stage, in my opinion. It's all, and this is not really the way I think it should be, but I think it's reality. If you get enough popularity, you just reach those stages.
That's true in some cases, but here's the thing, though.
I could be the dumbest man on earth.
I agree.
But
the problem is,
if I have this amazing following, those high-level intellects will certainly invite me on.
I don't think they bother with the dime a dozen type players, right? Because even if any of them could just say, "Oh, what's that?" I'm sorry.
If you're really popular. If I had,
but how many people get popular with no ability to really communicate effectively on these topics, right? It can happen, sure.
Communication, I think, is vital.
I agree.
But there's other things too. There's production. There's all these different things.
Look at Tom Jump. Do you think really Tom Jump understands a lot of things he talks about? I don't. I get along with the guy. We've been friends off and on for years. But do I think he's at the level that he thinks he's at? No.
Well, what I'm saying is there are a lot of people that, I mean, I'm a YouTube junkie. That's kind of why I'm ended up here, right? Because I've been watching YouTube videos a long time.
Well, you didn't watch any of my stuff, obviously, before, and
no, but I'm going to now.
Okay, and I got a ton of stuff out there, man. I go way back with these people. I started at the base roots.
I might have seen, but I could have seen some of your stuff.
Possible, yeah.
I don't always subscribe, make notes of everything I watch.
What did you watch the Arn Rock Ken Hovind debate?
Or
how about King Crocoduck and Ken Hovind?
I've watched some Kent Hovind debates. I honestly don't remember which ones they were. Mm-hmm. And it was years ago when he was more popular. Like
when he was debating like scientists, and the scientists thought they were dumbfounded.
Yeah. I mean, I watched stuff in the past. I haven't got into like creationism and that sort of thing in probably 10 years.
Yeah, that's right. I started in anti-creationism, and it's so funny. Look at your live chat. It's like they throw out all these personal things like name dropping. No, I'm telling it the way it is. I'm known for being brute honest. I don't give a shit who knows whom. If I can curse on your live chat, it's not about that. It's about, hey, look, I'm just giving sound advice. Take it or leave it. I don't give a crap about personal attacks any longer, because I'm telling you, and especially Lou, if you do get into this, don't worry about what people say about you. Don't give a shit, dude. I'm telling you, as soon as you start giving a shit, then everybody's going to think that they can manipulate you.
Steve,
you put out what you believe, man.
Let me tell you something about me. I definitely don't give a shit.
You're a New Yorker, so of course you don't give a shit, bro. My mom was from Brooklyn. I know what they're like up there. Mad respect for that, man. I absolutely love that fact that, yes, New Yorkers are generally known, and New Jersey are not giving, they don't care, man. And keep that up, man. Don't care what people think about you, man. It's stupid.
I get insulted about my rotten teeth. I get stuff like that all the time, and
it's because they have nothing else.
If they can't address not give a shit at all.
If they can't address the arguments, I ignore them. I have too much social media presence any longer to give a shit about some rando dude that's talking about some kind of personal attribute about something, man. It's irrelevant. If they want to address my arguments, we'll have a conversation, right? But I understand I'm probably not going to have a conversation about the technical stuff with the average person. And I don't mean this to be disparaging, but somebody like you is probably not going to even have an interest in something like my paper, right? Or one of my papers. You just wouldn't. And I get that.
I get pretty, on my own personal studies and stuff, I go as deep as I can go. So it's not like I have no interest in that stuff. It's just that I don't pretend to have credibility in that, because
you don't have to.
Because those things, as far as I know, like I have a niece, and she's a PhD, and she's a well-published author and in her field of expertise. Now, I know a little bit about how academia works, right? So what I think about something just is not going to penetrate academia.
No, okay, that's fair, but I get that. But you'd be surprised who it influences. I mean, like my paper influenced the ideas of Dr. William Pye, which is a pseudonym. But he's an academic. Dr. S.A. Malik, he's an academic. So even though you may not have any like direct ties to academia, you never know how somebody might go, hey, this guy Lou, he might have a point on this, right? He has come up with something that is new and novel. Right, because there's a difference level in streamers, Lou. People that can just regurgitate stuff, and then people that can add to the discussion. If you really want to make a name for yourself, which I don't know if you're interested in, it's to add to the discussion. It's to come up with unique and novel ideas, not just repeat what 1,000 people before you said. Am I making sense on that?
Oh yeah, and I feel always free to explore things that may be different. All right. That's why I do these discussions, right? Because I'm here to learn as well. It's not like
I love that.
I think I know it all, but mostly what I hear coming back from, let's say, Christians, which is my primary audience, more so Christians than atheists, right? I'm an atheist, but most of my audience that I get on here seem to be more Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what I get is just prepackaged. It's stuff I've heard,
Right. Well, it's the same thing that applies to them, though, right, Lou? I mean, Christians that don't add anything to the dialogue, they're a dime a dozen, right? The Christians that are more well known, they've added to the dialogue. Like, I have a lot of respect for Inspiring Philosophy. He's added to the dialogue. I have a lot of respect for Eric Hernandez from what the hell is this in the organization? He's added to the dialogue. I don't have respect for people like Ken Hovind or people like Ray Comfort, right? They haven't added to the dialogue. They've added rhetoric.
No,
they're idiots.
They're like preachers.
Sure. Yeah. Right. So if I have a respect for like Plantinga, I don't agree with Plantinga, but he's added to the dialogue with his modal ontological argument and stuff like that. So it depends on what you want to go, right? But if you just want to be an average conversationalist, great, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think that if you do try to aspire to be higher in as far as like moral dialogue, you got to learn the terminology they use for moral dialogue, because that's what you wanted to have. That's what you put in the debate of the group, right? Religious morality versus secular morality.
Yeah,
that's what you put.
The reason I do that is people usually relate to these discussion topics, right? And I don't feel I'm a literal lightweight in this stuff. I just want to be clear. I'm not an expert in these fields.
You don't have to be. That's the glorious thing about having an opinion, my friend. You don't need to be an expert. I would hope that you're right on something when you put it out, but you don't have to be an expert, right? You just have to be taken as somebody who's not an idiot and that maybe kind of has a general understanding of things. That's what people really kind of look for.
That's what I feel I'm okay with. I have a general understanding of these conversations. A lot of the words I do know what they mean, but there are topics where I'm not going to understand certain things because I may not have ever even heard the word before.
Yeah,
that's where I have to look at the definition. I gotta
the definition is descriptive, though, right? There is no one set definition. Words are polysemous in English. Right? Words can mean many things. They could have connotations that are completely different than how somebody else uses it. And even in the academic literature, some words are used very differently. Like especially on moral theory, the term objective and subjective could be all over the place. And so, sure, if you want to define terms on that, that's fine, because you say, okay, how are you using this term? Because it's used completely different sometimes by different authors.
There's an example of something that I get all the time. Objective morality, subjective morality.
Mm-hmm.
My morality is based on God. My morality isn't.
Right.
And I'm familiar with all that stuff.
Yeah, I tend to object to morality, and my morality is grounded on what's called eudaimonia, which is Greek for human flourishing. It's based upon that society, as what's called social contractualism, must get along. There must be social cohesion. And so to have social cohesion, we say, hey, look, I wouldn't want this done to me, right? So I'm not going to do it to somebody else, because my ability to live my life encroaches on somebody else's ability to live their lives. There's a problem, right? So I believe that we have morality so we all get along. That's what is grounded in. Nothing wrong with that. And so objective morality just means that there are some facts that exist, some moral facts that exist, that are independently discoverable and known, or can be known. That's it. That's all it means. At least one. And I absolutely think that is the case. And there could be other forms, there are other types of moral facts that are subjective, sure. But I think there are some moral facts that are objectively true. Yes.
Well, my view of morality pretty much is your view of morality. The only thing I'm not positive on, and I leave it to, and I don't know because I haven't concluded one way or the other, is when we use, this is that definition of terms, when we use the word objective, right?
You know what they mean by that, though?
What's that?
Generally, do you know what they mean? And when you
Yeah.
read,
Yeah, I know what they mean.
How do you think they mean by that? Because I do have a lot of people that I think do have a little bit of misconception there. Now, I'm not saying you do, but I'm just curious. When you hear the term objective,
when we're talking about like objective morality versus subjective morality,
yes, like when generally speaking, because again, these terms are used differently. But if you see it with no qualifications, how do you really think the author is meaning by that when you read it, or somebody says they
the way I think authors mean it differently. But
they do. No, that's true.
I'll tell you what I think it means.
Yes.
And I think it means, like, if someone says they have an objective morality, I take that to mean that they have a morality that is true regardless of a subject. So that, regardless of what anybody thinks. All right. So it's outside of thought. All right. And that also, I take it to mean it's proven to be true. All right. In an absolute type of sense. All right. And then when someone says they have a subjective morality, I think they're basing their morality on thoughts, on, them being the subject, or even God being a subject, that he thought this through or something like that. So,
all right, you had me about 80%. You kind of there's a middle part where I highly disagree with, but I think you got the gist of it. However, there are some problems with that. Yes, objective morality is a position that it is what's called mind stance independent. It doesn't give a damn what somebody thinks. Okay, but it also means that it doesn't have anything to do with being absolutely true. Okay, this is a meta-ethical theory, right? Meta-ethics only tells you how to interpret things, not normative ethics, right? It doesn't tell you something is absolutely true or not. Or objective morality is not absolute morality. Those people really conflate those things. But objective morality says that there's at least a moral fact that exists that you and I can go into the world and discover to be true, regardless of anything else what somebody says. Like, for example, if I say, "Hey, Lou, can you go find out if 1 + 1 = 2?"
Right.
You say, yeah, you can go. And if I say, here's the parameters for the reals, right? Here's Pino's axioms. Here's everything you know to form the real mathematical framework. Could you independently go discover that 1 + 1 = 2? Yes, it's an objective fact, right?
Right.
And so
if that's objective morality, I feel I have objective morality.
Yeah, and I think most people do. They just don't like that term. Most atheist philosophers are objective realists. They're more seriously. Atheist philosophers tend to moral realism. It has nothing to do with God. Matter of fact, I think it complicates matters if you have God to have objective morality.
Oh, no,
God makes things very difficult.
Me too. But when you have dialogue with Christians, it's like, I think they're twisting everything in all different directions. It's like,
they do, because here's the problem. Okay, if there's a God, and let's talk specifically about the Judo Christian type God. If that God exists, then when it comes to morality, there's one of two things that could be. Either A, and this is called the Euthyphro dilemma for people who don't know, but either A, God dictates what is moral by the proclamation, right? Whatever he says, go, right? That was what's called divine command theory. The other horn of that dilemma is that God commands what is good because it is good. And there's some kind of virtuous thing in the universe of moral law that God even has to be held to, which again affects his own aseity and his own, self-dominion. So whatever horn you take, there's a problem.
It's an aspect of the Euthyphro.
The Euthyphro dilemma. Exactly.
And that's how I see it. But when you're talking to people, again, most people are not scholars. Most people are not, they're looking at certain things in a particular way. So I communicate in a way that I feel I'm at least trying to express my feelings to them.
I think you're on the right path. Matter of fact, I mean, one thing I asked, theists all the time is, look, if God commanded something to be true under divine command theory, it makes it right. Would you abide by that? If God said it is now morally permissible to go out and start killing anybody you want, would you say, hey, now it's moral, I'll go do it? You'd be like, no, I'm a moral person. Even though God says it's okay, I'm not going to go do it. Or worse, if God commands it, like he did with Abraham and his son, would you go do it? My moral stance is no. I would tell God no. And I would think, and hear me out on this, Lou, if I may, and I don't mean to dominate your stream. It's been a long while since I've jumped into one. So, forgive me. It's just I've got so many things going on.
I appreciate you jumping in on mine.
Thank you.
But I agree with you, by the way, on that. And the thing is, my experience with most of the Christians that I encounter, and I know more Christians than non-Christians by far, most of them seem to go along with divine command theory. All right.
Many do, yeah. But do you think, and again, hear me out, and for any Christian that listens to this, if God commanded you to kill your own child, and you say, God, hey, look, I respect you. You're the creator of all things, and you're all powerful and all knowing, but you're asking me to do something that I personally find to be morally egregious. And can you respect that? As you gave me personhood, you gave me the ability to think and reason. You gave me the ability to have moral theories and to dictate to myself what I consider to be ethical or not. Would you allow me to deny your commandment on that? What kind of righteous God would not say, yes, you're right. I understand, your reasoning is sound, and therefore, not punish you for not being commanded by this, bloodthirsty God to kill your own child. I mean, am I wrong on this, Lou?
I mean, I'm with you.
Okay. But I wish you had a theist on, because I mean, you and I probably agree on most stuff. This has gotten boring. You agree with me on everything. Stop it. I don't like that.
No, I'm with you on that, because that's ultimately what I think it comes down to. I actually look at the God of the Bible as being immoral just because of that, because I think an immoral agent would insist,
which is perfectly fine.
Your own child.
And that's why there's this thing called the moral monster, right? The moral monster of the OT. The OT God and the NT God are seemingly two different variations of the same, of some two different beings rather than the same being, right? And of course, I understand how they will relate them together, but I mean, the original Yahweh comes from El, which was the actual head of the all gods, and he had a war god, which was a Canaanite god, which was Yahweh. And so that Canaanite God is what distilled down to what we have as the modern version of Yahweh. But he was actually a secondary God originally. A lot of people don't recognize that. He was promoted.
I know that too. And like for me, I understand it the way you do again. But when you're talking to Christians, that doesn't seem to be anything they could even consider. Like, it's not even within their ability to even go there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Anyways, though, if you want somebody else to jump on, I've had my say.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I just posted the link, and I appreciate you coming by.
You're welcome, man.
If you can subscribe to my
I'm
channel,
I'm doing it right now.
It's small, but I wanted to grow this year.
I just subscribed. I did. So, okay, my friend. Yeah, this was good. Like I said, this was nice. I'll be in those. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, so I will chat with you there. But this was good. Let me know when you're having these things. I like to listen in. Sound good?
I appreciate you, and appreciate you coming by. And again, I'm gonna join your channel once I
go for it.
This, and I have a minute.
Yeah, send me. I'm gonna add you on Facebook too, and just let me know what you think. I appreciate it. I'll keep in touch with you. Absolutely.
Right. Thanks for coming by.
You got it, my friend. Bye.
Bye. So, anyone else want to come in? I just posted the link again. I'll do it again. All right. Love this type of conversation. I like to keep it always friendly. All right. I don't think there's a reason for people to get overly heated. Okay. Because simply we might disagree on something. All right. That shouldn't mean we need to be enemies. That's for sure. All right. I like to build bridges and not blow them up. But of course, there's always people that are just crazy and want to blow everything up. But that's not my intention anyway. So let's see. Master Maverick. That also aligns with how we bring up children. We give them laws first. Don't talk to strangers. Okay. Old Testament God penalized people in a heavier manner. Yeah, he was pretty heavy. That's it brings up something interesting, Master Maverick, right? When I look at the God of the Bible, what I get is a God who punishes people pretty much the same. And I don't mean in on earth. I mean ultimately, ultimately after everyone dies or after a person dies, he seems to punish the kid who shoplifted, a stereo or whatever, right? He seems to punish that kid with the same punishment as the punishment given to, the serial killer or Hitler or any other horrendously horrible person. And that always strikes me as not being very just. That's just how I see it. Right? But I don't know. I mean, does he really punish people differently? I mean, in the here and now, yes. So I could agree with that. He handles certain people differently than others. But ultimately, everyone goes to hell or they go to heaven. Or if you're Catholic, they go to purgatory. But there's not too many options, right? He picks one and that's it. So, Christian God forgives all sinners once they align with him. Yeah, they have to bow down to him. Yeah. I mean, that I agree with you on. They have to bow down and worship the God and tell the God that he is, the Lord of their lives. And then he forgives people. But if you don't do that, you pay the price, right? And that part I don't find fair, just like the whole justice thing. I don't find that fair. Someone doesn't, I know in my life, I don't hate people who don't bow down in front of me and kiss my feet. Okay. I definitely don't hate someone who doesn't do that. And it does seem like the God does that. The God needs you to bow down, kiss his feet, and tell him how great he is. That's just what I read in the Bible. The God wants you to tell him how great he is all the time. And I don't do that in my life, so I don't know why the God has to do that. You think Christianity promotes reincarnation? Well, there's a different idea. I don't normally hear that. It's a different thought than I normally hear. See, Master, you don't have that's not a standard type of Christian theology. You have a different belief than a lot of other people. And that's okay. You're free to think your own thoughts. So, what's the God here? Hey, flute whistle. I don't know if that's directed to me or not. But in my understanding, there is no God, so there's no God here. But I guess I am the God of this stream because I am controlling it. But if you notice, I'm not telling everyone or anybody that they have to bow down and kiss my toenails. Hey, Master Maverick, I think your belief is just as good as anybody else's. So, but I guarantee you that many Christians will have a real problem with what you believe. So maybe there's a difference between someone like myself who believes in free thinking and accepts people for what they might believe and judges people based on their actions and not the things they're thinking. All right. I have no problem with what you believe. All right. I may disagree, but I'm not going to condemn you to hell for it. But you probably have been condemned to hell by other Christian people who just see what you believe as heretical. I see you don't call yourself Christian. Well, I understand why. But I think you should make a note of that. I mean, here I am, an atheist, and I don't hate what you believe. I think it's as valid as what anyone else believes. Right? Just that I don't agree with what you believe, but it's as valid as anybody else's belief. And I'm not going to condemn you or tell you you're worthy of hell. Whereas I think a lot of Christians will do that. And I think that says something about their character. You hate what I believe. That's okay. You could hate it, but long as you don't hate me as a person, okay? Because I would say that's just wrong to hate someone as a person for no good reason other than you hate what they believe. I mean, I hate what a lot of people believe, but I can still love the person and not hate them based on what they believe. That's a good one. You think I'm divine? Well, I'm not so arrogant as to think I'm divine. It's not what my take is, but I'll take it. I think every human being has equal footing in that we are all in the same category of being. We're all in the same species. So I think we're all equal in that way. But of course, some of us do some rotten things, and that changes our perception of human beings. So I always, if someone treats me decently, I have place for that person, right? Because it's they're treating me decently. Now I could call out if they're doing something wrong or they're doing something hurtful to others, but at least I have room, to accept them as a person. And I'd never accept or judge my acceptance of a person based on a belief, because it simply doesn't really matter to me what a person believes. It's how they act. Okay. So biblically, if you're just using the Bible, I kind of go with faith without works is dead. The book of James. That's kind of like what where I find myself. If you're just saying things and believing things and then acting like a real jerk, you're a jerk. If that makes any sense. Hey, Master Maverick, would you like to come on the stream and talk to James? You both can be on the screen. I could take a walk. I can go get a drink for a minute, or I have a drink, but maybe get something to eat for a second. Where you located? Oh, Europe. Wow. It's interesting when it's fascinating. You get to talk to people from all over the world. I think that's incredible. So, James, it's good to see you again. I wish you had more moderation to do, but we'll see who pops on here. James, if you can pop on for a minute, I wanted to talk to you about how you determine your morality. That's like my topic of the day. How do we determine what is moral? Abusing people for personal gratification is not immoral. Master, how many people do you know who think that abusing people for personal gratification is moral? Like, how many people actually do you know that fall into that category? Because I don't know many. I probably have met a couple of crazy, sadistic people, but not too many. Most people would agree that that is immoral. Master, do you believe in a God of some sort? Maybe not exactly the Christian God, but you believe in a God? And is your God a person, or is your God just an energy? Okay, so you wouldn't call the God that you believe in, you wouldn't call him a person. Am I correct? Like, you don't talk to him or it, do you? So you do talk to God. That intrigues me. Does your God have a name? Do you address him by a name, or just say, you know, a general term like God? Okay, Master, I think you probably heard my question. I hope you did. Do you, when you speak to God, are you talking to all right, there it is. You call him God, right? Does he talk back to you? Okay, like a friend. Friends usually talk back, right? There's a dialogue, it's a conversation. Do you have those conversations with God? those type of conversations? Okay. So you don't think he speaks to you like maybe your friend would? He has a special form of communication? Because your friend, if you were to talk to your friend, you're not seeing your friend in a dream or seeing him telepathically. You're actually interacting with him in the, what we consider reality. Okay. So he communicates not in a human language, so I can understand what you think. Here we go. Catholic traditionalist. Welcome. Let me pop you in here. Let's see. Master, telepathic dreams through other people. Thoughts, that is how I believe God communicates with me. Oh, I guess that's why you thought I was divine, Master Maverick, because it's possible I could be communicating something that is from God or is God. It's a very mystical type belief you have. And again, I think it's just as good as anybody else's. All right. But, not the way I think anyway. Hold on. Catholic traditionalist, how you doing?
Hello there. You're an atheist?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So if I define God as, let's say, an intelligent agent, a mind, he who instantiates and imposes all states of affairs, eternal, the ground of all being, would you accept that God right now? Would you say that God exists?
I mean, I would ask you to somehow show me that God exists. To be what I think you're
I
doing.
didn't ask what you would want me to do. I asked right now, based on my definition of that God, would you assert that that God exists?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, why not?
I mean, for the same reason I wouldn't accept anyone else's
I don't
definition.
know what that reason is. I'm asking you, with regards to the God I define, what is the reason for you not accepting that God?
Because I see no reason that that's real.
Why not?
I see no evidence of that in my life.
Okay, great. So then you're pointing to evidence. So with regards to all things that you perceive to exist, how is it that you determine all those things is not evidence for the God that I just now defined?
Catholic, I want to talk to you, okay? But I'm a little slow. If you're going to go 100 miles an hour, I'm not going to be able to keep up with you. So
I can repeat the question.
yeah, and let me answer it. Don't interrupt, okay?
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay. You ask your question, and then I will answer your question.
So with regards to all things that you perceive to exist, how is it that you've determined all of those things is not evidence for the God that I just now defined?
Okay. All right. I guess the part of the question that I'm picking up that I think is important is I definitely do not have evidence for everything I believe. So let me state that clearly. Okay. There are things I do believe that I may not have evidence to support. Okay. So understand that. And I believe or not believe things based on my cognitive ability to make conclusions. All right. And I try to use logic and reason, all right, but I can be wrong. So I guess that'd be what I'm getting.
Okay, so with regards to the logic and reason that you use to determine that all things that you perceive to exist is not evidence for the God that I just now defined, what is that logic and reasoning that you use to come to that determination?
It would be like everything that I believe is true would have a separate reason. All right. It's not the same for everything.
That's not informative. So far, I have no idea why it is that you're not accepting all those things that you perceive to exist to be evidence for the God that I define. Can you please be specific?
I may not fully understand what you're asking me. So, I mean, but I'm trying the best I can to understand what you're asking me. All right. Maybe you could reframe the question. Maybe I could understand it better.
Yeah, it's not that complicated with regards to everything that you know about.
Listen. All right. If you came in my stream to try to make me look stupid, then you got the wrong dude, man.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make you look stupid. I'm sorry if you feel that way.
I forget about my feelings. It's my stream, correct? I'm trying my best to understand what you're saying, and what you're saying is not registering with me. Okay. So if you want to reclarify so that I can understand and be patient enough so that I can give you a coherent answer, then rephrase it.
Yeah, that's what I was just now about to do. I don't know why you're getting so angry.
Because nothing you have said to me so far is ringing as anything relevant. So maybe you can bring it to a point where I can understand what is relevant. You started this conversation, did you not, by saying, talking about, why I don't believe in something, and now you're saying, well, you believe in other things, right? And you're saying, well, you're trying to connect these two thoughts, and I'm not getting it. So, and again, if you're going to say I'm stupid, okay, okay, but you're not going to do that in my stream, no.
Well, I'm not accusing you of being stupid. I'm sorry if you feel that way.
Well, you're asking these, like, your questions are like, it's like brain teasers. You know what I mean? It's like me asking you, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, give me a break already. All right, just talk to me like a regular person, okay?
Okay, so with regards to all things that you know of.
All things I know of, okay.
Yeah,
and
you would agree.
And I don't know of all things, but I know some things.
Yeah, with regards to all things that you're able to perceive to exist.
Yes.
Would you agree that in order to perceive those things, then those things, the very nature and being of those things, have to be understandable, at least on a basic level, for you to at least be able to perceive them?
Yes, they are understandable to me, yes.
Okay. So since they're understandable by their very nature and being, that invokes intelligibility. Now, let me ask you this question. Is intelligibility a concrete thing or an abstract thing?
Intelligibility would be abstract because it's coming from me or you or the person who is determining that.
So it requires a mind?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you.
Now
I want to thank you. Great. Now I want to thank you.
Well, we're getting somewhere because
I know we are.
You're asking me.
Right. I want to thank you for answering my questions, because by the answers you've just provided to my questions, you've just admitted that God exists.
How is that?
Yeah, because you've admitted that with regards to the very nature and being of the things, irregardless of you, myself, or any other life in the universe, these things have the ontological nature of being understandable. And understandable invokes the metaphysic of intelligibility, and you admitted that it's an abstract, which requires a mind. Therefore, since it exists in such a way outside of you, me, and all other life in the universe, and yet it still requires a mind, then there's only one mind left that it could be, and that would be the mind of God.
No, that doesn't follow.
Okay, then refute my argument.
It just doesn't follow.
But that's not a refutation of my argument. Refute it.
You refute it.
Well, I mean, if you have an argument against my argument, then make a case.
All right. So again, everything you said, I answered in the way I understand it. Then you went to a point that doesn't make sense to me. And the point that doesn't make sense to me is you're going into because intelligibility, right? Like comprehending something. Is that what you mean by
Well,
intelligibility?
intelligibility doesn't just, if you look at the definition of intelligibility, it's not simply comprehending is part of it, but it's not simply comprehending.
Well,
It's
what's
also
why don't we
conceptualizing and
why
having
don't we
ideas.
why don't we define it so that I can give you a clear answer?
Yeah, that's what I just did. The very definition of intellect is with regards to the experience whereby you can perceive, and you can also come up with conceptualizations, like we said, abstracts and ideas.
Okay, so because I have ideas and I have an ability to think about something, what does that prove to you? That there's a God?
Well, no, you've already removed yourself out of it because you admitted that the very nature and being of things themselves have the nature of understandability and being of understandability. So it
No, no,
doesn't.
no.
So no, you admitted that earlier. You admitted that earlier.
Well, I don't know. Are you keeping notes on it? Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
anybody could go back. Anybody could go back and listen to the question that I posed to you, and you admitted this earlier in my questioning of.
Dude, I'll tell you what I said. Okay. Understand it when I say it to you. And if you don't, then ask me to clarify. Okay. What I am saying is that yes, in order for something to be intelligible, right? Got that part, that requires a mind, all right? Because if there is no mind, there's no intelligence.
Great. Once again, you're proving God exists.
That's the part I don't get. So focus on that, and then we can get there.
Yeah, because that mind exists with regards to all things, with regards to the intelligibility of all things. But the previous answer you gave is that it's not your mind or my mind or any other human being's mind or any life in the universe that is instantiating and imposing that intelligibility, because you admitted that the intelligibility exists ontologically so.
I definitely didn't say that.
Yes, you did, because I asked you the question. I said, does it exist? I asked you the question.
Ontological at all.
I asked you the question, does it exist with regards to its very nature and being, with regards to its understandability, irregards of yourself, myself, and any other human beings? Your answer was yes.
Did I use the word ontological?
Well, I didn't use the word ontological in the very beginning, but the word ontological means nature and being.
You said that I said.
No, I didn't say that you said ontological. I said that with regards to my original question, I made it simple for you. Instead of using the word ontological in my original question, I simply defined ontological for you, and I went ahead and used it to explain the things that you perceive to exist. You agree that those things have the very nature and being of themselves, irregardless of you, me, or any other human life. That was your answer.
Okay, whatever. I don't remember saying any of that.
Okay, now you don't remember. You just suddenly got amnesia. Huh?
Listen, dude, get this through your head. I'm not someone who's going to tolerate your shit. Goodbye.
Why are you getting triggered?
Because that's just the way I am.
Why are you getting so angry?
Because I can't stand.
Is that the demon manifesting inside of you?
Is that the Holy Spirit manifesting in you?
Yes, the Holy Spirit speaks truth through me.
Okay, goodbye. Hey, Antangelo. How you doing?
Yes, hi Lou. How are you?
Good.
I was just listening. I think that my Catholic friend is a pre-sup apologist, so he uses that approach, trying to convince opponents of God's existence.
Antangelo, let me ask you something. Okay. Were you listening to that conversation?
Yes, at least the last 10 minutes or so.
Was he saying what I was saying when he's defining what I was saying? Because I didn't get that. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
get that, but he
Yeah, I
said,
think it's important that we speak in a way that is comprehensible and not too difficult to understand, right?
well, I did not say ontologically this or that or the other thing. I didn't even say such a thing. He asked me to, when he started the conversation, he asked me if, for, do I believe in certain things? And then because I believe in those things, that means God exists. I mean, to me, he jumped to this huge thing that I didn't say that, but he's putting thoughts in my mind or saying I said something I simply did not say.
I
And
think the
I don't
problem,
I don't
yeah, I
think
think,
that's talking or communicating to a person. All right. I think when like I'm going to respect you enough to try to understand what you're saying. All right. And not just say, this is what you're saying. You're saying, like, I don't even know you, right? I don't know if you believe in a God, don't believe in a God. I'm not going to jump in and say, oh, well, that means you believe in a God. Because
yeah, I think that my friend made the mistake actually to explain why he thinks that what you said leads to the conclusion of God's existence. So
yeah, but
maybe it would have been,
he's throwing it in on me. He's
yeah,
putting it
right.
on
Yeah.
me.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I took offense to.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so again, he could say whatever he wants, but it is my stream. Okay, so if you're gonna come in and say I'm going to tell you what you think,
Yeah, I get what you're
not
saying.
really my way of wanting to communicate.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
I respect what people think, but don't tell me what I think. And
Yeah,
don't try to trap me in a little game, all right, and say, oh, look, I got you, all right,
yeah, yeah,
because it's meaningless. It doesn't even mean if you got me. I don't care if you get me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But don't be so arrogant. Oh, well, I know I got you. Sorry. It's not how I communicate with other men or women. Okay.
okay. So you live in Brooklyn?
No, I used to. I don't live there for many years. I live in
But
Florida.
you live in Florida? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nice. I live a little bit more south than Florida.
Uh, in Florida, South.
No, I live in another country. I live in Brazil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's a little south. How is
Yeah,
Brazil, by the way? I don't never been there. It seems to be a beautiful place, but
yeah, it's nice here. Yeah.
I know of all the great fighters that come from Brazil, the jiu-jitsu people.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of beautiful women.
Yeah. Yeah, some are, but the most are not. My wife is.
Ah, there you go. But you didn't have to say that, right?
Well, but they say it very proudly. So
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that you have that feeling for her.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you should, and it makes life a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So anyway,
So
what would you like to talk about?
have you are an atheist, right?
I am, yes.
So have you been an atheist for all your life? Have you been deconverted? Tell me a little bit about your story.
I was a Christian most of my life. Right, I'm 62, so it's been I'm not a young man. Um, when I first encountered any teachings about religion or God, it was in the Catholic Church when I was real young. So I got a background in what the Catholic Church believes. I went to I was baptized Catholic. My parents were Catholic. Went to the catechism, the first communion, confirmation in the Catholic Church. And I kind of forgot about religion for quite a few years. And maybe when I was about 25 years old, I came back to religion and thinking about it more. And that's when I became born again. I felt I was a born again Christian and what we would call evangelical. I guess that's the word, we would use today for that. And I lived like that and thought that was true for quite a few years. And about 10 to 12 years ago, I changed my mind after studying, different things. And I came to conclude what I thought was true was simply not true. I made that decision for myself. I didn't do it for other people. And most of the people in my life are Christians, right? But I'm not. So that's
interesting. Quite a similar trajectory as mine. I am 58, so I'm just 4 years younger than you. And I was actually also, I grew up Catholic from Italian family. And then with 18, I became a born-again evangelical Christian.
Very similar.
Yeah. But I think the big difference is that I'm continuing as born-again evangelical Christian. So I've not changed my mind in 40 years. Actually, after 40 years, I believe more than ever before that what I believe is true.
Right. And I have no problem with what you believe. So
I have also no problem with what you believe. I mean, I came to your stream. I knew that you are an atheist, but I have conversations with atheists all the time, and I have absolutely no prejudice or problem whatsoever with your beliefs. What you want to be true. That's just your business,
Yeah,
and I respect that.
Today, I was trying to discuss morality, where we get it from. Where you think morality comes from, or how you determine morality, like in your own life, if you were going to make a decision and it was something you wanted to contemplate because maybe you think it's an important decision. And just curious, I mean, that was what I was hoping to talk about, like what, how do you come to determine what is moral or immoral?
Well, I think there are two sources. One is your conscience, and the second is the ought to be's, which you find, at least in our Christian hemisphere, in the Bible.
So let me ask you this, because you said something that I find interesting, and it may be quite similar to myself. It just might differ a little bit. When you say, like, you look to your conscience, right? That's something that you have, right? It's not that's something where you look inside, or you think about something and you might intuitively know, something is wrong. Like if you see somebody doing something very bad, you might intuitively just say, oh, that's just horrible. I mean, I do that.
Yes.
You do the same thing. So that
I think you're describing what consciousness is, what conscious is.
Yeah. So we agree on that, right?
Yeah.
The part where we would disagree, I think, is you have another aspect, right? Because everything is not just that conscience, right? Because you could go through life and just quickly make decisions, right? And it might be just based on your conscience. You just see something, like I said, oh, this is wrong. What I'm seeing is wrong. But there are other things that we have to more think about longer term, maybe, where we We have
Yeah.
to, make a decision that is more based on thinking it through for a longer period of time,
Yeah.
right? And those types of things, you would go to the Bible. Is that the way I understand it?
Well, I don't see the Bible as a like a cuisine book, recipe book where you find for every case a recipe how to behave. Right? I mean, you don't find the instruction in the Bible. Don't write an empty check which doesn't have funding. I mean, there are so many things, situations today that you cannot simply go and find an instruction manual in the Bible what to do. You have more kind of, I would say, general guidelines, and based on them, we should try to find out what is morally correct and what is not.
Yes. And when you do that, right, when you actually go through that process, I'm struggling to find something where I could use as an analogy, but, maybe something you're contemplating and you're asking, is this the moral thing to do? I mean, it could, I don't know, maybe it could be like you're doing a business transaction, right? And maybe you withholding some information. Not that you would be doing this. I'm just saying it could be, right? Maybe you know something about, say you're selling a house and you know that the house you're selling has a leaky roof, but you kind of covered it up, right? to make it seem like it wasn't a leaky roof. And maybe you're thinking, should I do that, or should I just say, the house has a leaky roof, right?
Yeah, basically
That would,
omitting a situation. That's
that
a
would
good
be a
example, I would
that would
say.
be a
But
moral decision, right?
yeah,
If something
but I
you have,
was actually more thinking kind of, was it morally justified, for example, to drop the bomb in Hiroshima, where you had, I don't know, 20, 30, 50,000 people that died, but for a greater good, in order to end the war. And if that wouldn't have happened, maybe then more lives would have been taken if it would have continued the war of Japan. And based on these two bombs, they decided, let's finish, let's make an agreement. So certainly these are kind of moral decisions which are very difficult to be taken. And the question is, of course, was that morally justifiable or was it not?
well, like, yeah, I mean, look at something like that. If you were the one who was going to make such a decision, if you were in a position to make such a decision, and you were looking at, should I go ahead and drop the bomb on Hiroshima or not, what would you use as a foundation, or how would you think that through? What methodology might you use?
Well, I don't know if this story is true. I think I just saw a short part of Oppenheimer, and I don't know if it is true that he thought, well, let's just drop this bomb at the place in Japan where there are no people living, just to show the Japanese that we have the power to drop the bomb as well in a city and kill thousands of people. And if we are doing this, we are not killing anyone, but we will reach the problem in the same sense that they will probably then accept to stop the war. I mean, these are difficult moral decisions, right?
Yeah, no, I think it is a difficult moral decision. That's why I'm wondering, like, how you might go through making that decision yourself. Like, would
Yeah.
you go to the Bible, or would you just think it through without the Bible? You know,
Often, I mean, as a Christian, and I think you have gone through this as a Christian, as an evangelical as well. Um, when you have daily prayer and talk to God, just you and God, then you lay down your decisions and you ask Him, Lord, what shall I do? Direct me to the right decision, that I can do the right um, thing, right? And then wait for an answer. And sometimes uh, the answer can come, or eventually it doesn't come. But I certainly think that this, as a Christian, is a way to deal with difficult decisions that involve also moral aspects.
Well, I agree. It definitely involves moral aspects, and I think you recognize that a person could come to two different views, right? You know,
Yeah,
so
especially when the decision is difficult to be
yeah,
made, right?
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm. I guess what I'm getting at is there's some decisions that are pretty easy because most human beings might agree on certain things. It's wrong to go do this horrible thing for no reason, right? That would be something most people would say bad, right? But when you add in other people and other people's well being as well, then the decision gets a little bit more complicated. So I agree
Yeah,
with you with that. But
yeah.
but what would you do? Like how would you assess that? You know?
Yeah, I think in order to give an answer, I would need to know exactly what would be the issue in question, that would have to find a decision how to act, and then eventually I could assess your question and give a response. But as I said, in a general sense, I, as a Christian, if I am in front of a different moral question, then I try to look what the Bible says, what guidelines it gives, and then pray and ask the Lord for direction.
Well, I think the issue you brought up, like dropping a bomb, right? Considering, all the lives that are involved, right? If you're thinking about it in terms of, well, there's all these lives involved, and my decision is going to destroy the lives of so many human beings, right? That decision is not an easy one. And I'm wondering, do you find any biblical answer to that? Because I don't think it's there. I mean,
Yeah, I think either. I've not seen any situation characterized. Well, maybe there is, where you, for example, the slaughter of the Canaanites, where God commands the Israelites to kill the Canaanites. And then often comes up the question, was God morally evil for commanding to kill children and women and an entire tribe? And then, of course, one possible explanation would be, well, God commanded it for a greater good. That is, that Israel would not mix with these folks and then become spiritually and religiously impure by mixing their religions with the belief in the God of the Bible.
right.
So, yeah.
But absolutely, I agree with you. And I think that's something that God did in the Bible, right? He made those decisions.
Yeah, you asked me, is there a case like what we are talking about in the Bible? So this example comes in my mind, that God eventually commanded them to kill the Canaanites for a greater good, based on God's perspective and all knowing. And he had the goal to separate Israel as the elected folks that would then be the light to bring um, the belief in God to the world, as it
Right.
happened afterwards. And in order to protect that this would be preserved and actually happen, he permitted that they would kill those folks, because otherwise they would start to mix their religion with polytheism and so forth.
Yes, and that would be, without a doubt, that would be the view of you know, the Christians that I speak with. All right. But that view can certainly be debated, right? or no?
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course. I mean,
because you have
I've never seen an atheist agreeing with me that God, having this motivation or this greater good in mind, that this would be a justified order to command the Israelites to go and kill the Canaanites. But I mean, there is also the moral corruptness which is described in the Bible. So God's judgment didn't come just from hot air, but those folks they had horrendous um, religious practices like offering little babies to Moloch, which then were just burned, and um, they did that for many centuries. So there are
yeah,
different aspects to be considered in regards of
yeah,
that case.
yeah, and that's a response that Christians can give, and I get it. I understand that response, but I was more trying to speak in terms of those are decisions in the Bible that God made, right? You could see that. I'm talking about if you have to make that decision. Do you just go, "Oh well, the God killed those people, so I'm gonna drop the bomb"?
No, you asked me about if there is a case like that in the Bible. So I remembered this
Yeah.
case. That's why I brought it
Yes,
up.
and I truly understand that. I'm saying that would that be the way you would make a decision based on, let's say, dropping the bomb? You would
Well,
use
first of all, I've never been directly confronted
that.
with
I
a
know,
situation like
I
that,
know,
you
and I
know.
hope you never are.
Yeah,
Just
so
hypothetical, of course.
maybe I could not give a qualified answer until I actually would go through such a very difficult decision and then say what went through my mind.
It's hypothetical. I mean, I recognize that,
Yeah.
you know, because I think this is my thought. All right, I would think that you would have to still use uh, your own thinking and
Yeah.
analyze it based on how many lives you think will be saved, how many lives would be lost, right? Which, yes, God could understand that, but you don't, right? You know, he might understand that, but that's something you would have no ability to really totally know. You're making a judgment of your own at that point. You know, somebody had to make that choice, right? And it was a person who made that choice. And that person had to think of it the way they were thinking about it. So I don't
Yeah,
guess what I'm
another
saying is,
example is if you are a father. I'm a father of a girl which is 11 years old, and if a rapist would rape my daughter and kill her, and I would kill that guy, would that be morally justifiable? That is eventually another kind of
yeah.
situation like that, you know.
And I would say yes, all right, but there could be another rationale a different way, right? But I
Yeah,
would
these
think
are
that,
very, very difficult issues. How do you deal with them, you know? Do you, I mean, if a guy that kills a rapist of your daughter goes to a judge, what will the judge say? You go 20 years to prison because you killed the guy, or you will say no, you are free because you did something based on a justifiable situation.
yes. And what I guess the point I'm trying to make, because I am trying to make a point, is that with a morality based on the Bible, right? If you have a morality based on the Bible, that's your standard, you're still going to have to think through these things for yourself.
Yes.
And you're still going to have to make a decision one way or the other. Right. And I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand how that's different than anybody else in this world. I would have to make the same decision you're going to have to make. And I have a criteria that I use, and it's not the Bible, you see? So to me, this thing where I have to use the Bible, and I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that I encounter people who say, well, you have to use the Bible, and I pretty much am saying, no, I don't. I can think these things through on my own and use my own understanding of morality without a God and without a Bible, and I can act morally or immorally on my own, just like the Christian can. And that's kind of
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because we have all the same conscience. We know that killing someone for no good reason, just for fun, is wrong. That everyone knows that. So it doesn't need someone doesn't need to be a Christian or religious in any sense in order to understand that.
right. And we agree. I'm just I encounter a lot of people that say, no, I have to believe in the Bible in order to make a decision, a moral decision. And that part of it, I just don't agree with that. I
Yeah,
don't need to read the
yeah,
Bible to have
yeah. We,
make
we are on the same page here.
yeah, yeah, you know. And the years you've been a Christian, what has your faith given you that you think is very valuable, to your life? And I'm not talking about just like salvation, because you might think you're saved and that's a value you get, right? I'm talking about in everyday life, not just, oh, I'm saved and I'm going to heaven. And I don't even know if you believe, in that type of salvation, because we know that Christians believe different things, right? Some people believe
Yeah.
you lose your salvation. Some people think you can't. But aside from like the peace that you might get knowing that you're right with God, beyond that, like in your everyday life, what do you experience things where you say, wow, I'm really glad I'm a Christian?
I think sometimes there happen things that um, I believe that they are coming from God, and maybe God deals with his children different than with those that are not his children. Okay. And I had some very special moments which were very defining in my life, which I attribute to God and to his grace. And I think this is certainly something which is defining. But um, I would say that a big difference is when I was starting my trajectory as a Christian, I was asking myself the very basic fundamental questions which I think any one of us should ask ourselves about our existence uh, as a whole. That is, where do we come from? Where do we go? Why are we here? Does God exist? Does he not exist?
I thought you were going to
And
start rapping Cotton Eye Joe. I was really looking forward to that.
Hold on. I hear you, Antangelo.
yeah, and
And I wanted to ask you a question about that. All right. Because I agree, those are questions that a decent human being will probably ask those questions sometime in their life if they live long enough, right? If we're lucky enough to live long enough, we're probably gonna ask ourselves questions like that, right?
right, yeah.
Now, the answers that Christianity gave you, that makes you feel comfortable. That's Am I getting that right?
Well, let's say like this. I actually came to become a born again Christian by pain. And I was a teenager. I went through depression. Um, I didn't know a way out. I didn't even know that I had depression. And after 6 months or so seeking for a solution, I just said to myself, well, maybe starting to pray, and if God exists, He may help me out of this situation. And that didn't happen from one day to the other, but it was a process, and eventually I stopped being in this situation. And during that period, I started to read the Bible and trying to understand what is in the Bible. I had a lot of questions, and then a colleague at work, he offered me to go to an evangelical church to find people that eventually could answer some of the doubts and questions that I had. I accepted that. I went there, and they responded several of these questions, and I said, well, yes, I want that for me, and I want to have Christ as Lord and Savior, and I received Christ as my Savior, and that was my starting point. So I wouldn't say that it was based on evidence or um, looking around me and seeing, oh, this cannot be the product of chance. It must be a creator that made it, and so forth. It wasn't anything like that. My starting point was basically believing blindly. Okay, and it
Yeah.
was just to find community, to find people that I could ask questions, to understand things, and so forth. So that was my starting point, basically, and that the answers which I got, they helped me for me to make sense of reality and everything, and I accepted it, and
Right.
that has continued in that time period until today, basically.
Well, Atangelo, and am I saying your name right? I hope I am.
Yes.
Okay. Your reason for being a Christian is okay by me. I said this before. I mean, you have an experience, and you're getting benefit out of your faith, right? You know, you're you're getting value out of your faith. It's creating a decent life for you. It's giving you a mental stability. So those are all valid reasons to me. So I don't have anything, that those are a lot of the people in my life. I have people who are Christian. I'm not, right? But they have a valid reason for being a Christian like that it's something helping them in their lives, and it's helped them navigate through difficult times. I have no problem with that. Right? The only thing I would ask you is, can you understand someone who doesn't have that problem, that who can navigate through life in a different way and find peace, let's say, you know,
Well,
because
as I said previously, Lou, that I respect anyone that has a different belief system or worldview, and I have no problem with that, and I respect it. I am not um, joining to have conversations with atheists with the aim to convince them or something, because that's not my job. I mean, you are asking me about my experience. I'm telling you that is my experience.
yeah,
But if you are fine or not, that's that's up to you. You know.
yeah, and I respect you, and to me, you're a very straightforward, clear thinking person. You have a reason, and it's valid to me. All right, but I want to explain something that maybe you can think about. All right, it's not more valid to me than someone who finds the same type of thing in their Hindu beliefs, right, or their Buddhism, or Islam, or no religion at all in my case, right? I don't have a religion whatsoever, and yet I feel I have found peace in my life as well, right?
But you know, Lou, I mean, you talk always about um, how does it benefit you, or in case you are asking how it benefits me, right?
Yeah,
But um, I don't think that this is the only issue that is really relevant if it benefits me. I mean, what we want is to know actually the truth, right,
yes,
in regards of
absolutely,
our existence. So
absolutely,
if a creator actually made us, then he had a reason for that,
yeah.
and we want to know what is that reason, right?
I have the same feeling you do, and yet apparently we came to different conclusions, right? And that's where I say it's acceptable to me, because I I have no problem with somebody coming to a conclusion different than myself. Right? Where I run into difficulty with religious people is when they tell me that I need to find or come to the same conclusions they have. That's pretty much the only problem I have with religious people. It's not that they, have a belief that works for them, all right? But my whole thing is pursuing truth. That's what I'm after, all right? Now, I pursue truth every day. That's what I do every day, all right? I want to know what's true, all right? And it doesn't have to be true in the sense that it makes me feel good. All right. I want to know what is really true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
not a matter of, oh, well, I'll give you one, Tangelo, that you might have heard before. People encounter someone like me and they'll say, oh, you just want to go around and sin. Okay. Now that just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me because that's not what I'm after. I'm not after, oh, gee, I want to run around and sin. So it's like they're talking about something that doesn't apply to me. All right. And I know it doesn't apply to me. So that's where I would get a little testy, maybe, because they're trying to say, well, all you want to do is sin, and they're making this definitive statement. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. They
So
think they know more about you than you about yourself, right?
yes, that's what happened with that last guy. All right. It wasn't that, it's like I feel like he's trying to just impose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than have a dialogue that's each person is expressing their own thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And that's where I just get testy, you know. It's not,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
and it
I
makes
trying to
me
find
honestly, yeah, it makes me honestly sad because many people they approach others with the attempt to bring them to faith, um, trying to impose their faith to others, and this
yeah,
is very counterproductive. Rather than drawing people to Christ, it distances others from Christ, and people they want to have distance from people that try to impose what they believe to them.
yes. Yes. See, like a gentleman like you, I have no problem talking to you, and I have no problem trying to understand what you feel and why you think these things. And that's because I respect you. Okay. And that's
Yeah.
enough for me. But if you pop on, and this is not you at all, but if you pop on and just start ranting and raving and saying, you believe this and you did this and you don't believe in any morality, as an example. I mean, that's just, it's like not real. Of course, I have morality. It may be based on something different than yours. All right. But it still works for me. All right. And I respect what works for you. So I think there's some little bit of commonality there, you know, that we can
Yeah.
say, all right, as long as it's working for a person to keep them, stable minded and not hurting other people, well, let's at least accept that that's a good thing.
Well, this is precisely the core, I would say, of the Christian faith. You know, I mean, what did Christ say about the first and second most or foremost important command? First, love God above with all your force, with all your strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Yes.
So, and if we practice that, then society gets better.
Agreed. Totally agree with that. And I agree with that, whether or not it came from Christianity or Buddhism or another religion. I'm not throwing away things I think are good about Christianity. All right. Because if there's something good, I want to embrace it. All right. So there are things that Jesus talked about that I find a lot of value in. And I'm not going to throw that away just because I don't think he's a god. You see? you know, can you relate to that?
I think his screen froze.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel exactly what
Tangelo,
you're
you
saying.
there?
Uh,
Yeah, he's gone.
okay.
Hey, Scott, nice to see you.
Traditionalist when I popped in, and yeah, he was running the precept script on you, presuppositional apologetic.
The first guy.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that. Now here's the thing, Scott. I don't mind people. Yeah, it was the pre-sub script exactly,
Mhm.
and I find the pre-sub script to be very arrogant and obnoxious.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's kind of what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. To me, it's an obnoxious way to communicate.
Yeah, it's kind of circular reasoning, and it's sort of a way to just win an argument, like gotcha moments here and
That's
there.
what I'm saying. And
You know, and
I
nobody likes that. Who's really going to respond favorably to that?
well, you and I have talked a few times now, all right, and you know enough to know that's what I don't like. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You know, I've dealt with a few precepts that call in either to my channel or in the past we've had debates, and what I usually do is I just give them everything they want. Like, okay, you're right. I have no grounding for my morality or no grounding for my intelligibility. Okay, cool. Now what? Can we talk about Jesus? Did Jesus really walk on water? Can we talk about that? And usually they won't want that. They're going to want to get back to disabusing you. And I just give them everything they want. No, you're right. You're right. I have no grounds for my intelligibility, my morality. Okay. So how can you help me?
Can
How
I
can you
can
make
I
me
ask you
believe?
something, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear the conversation I had with that fellow?
Just on the last few minutes, like maybe 5 minutes in, he was trying to say something. You were talking about ontology.
Well, he was saying that, I mean, I guess the point was, but he was saying it in a way where I honestly was not getting it, right?
Hmm.
But he was kind of saying the gist of it was if I believe um, in intelligibility,
Hmm.
that there's a jump now to I just said I believed in God.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
first off, I can't stand it when people just say something you didn't. I know I didn't say I believed in God.
Right. Right.
So,
So he was trying what he was trying to say, and this is kind of part and parcel of the script, is that and they never define God. They'll just say something vague like, "Well, I believe in the triune God or the Christian God," and so you're supposed to say, "Oh, okay, so I'm supposed to understand that this God has intelligibility and purpose and volition and love, and he's all good, and he's omni, and he's all these things wrapped.
I
Do you
lost you,
believe in
Scott.
God?" Uh-oh.
Hey, you're
Oh,
coming in and out.
oh, doggone it. I was just really in a nutshell to say, you don't know how he believes in God, so how can you say you believe in the same God he does? Because he's never defined his God. He's just simply imposed it on you. He said,
Well,
because
yeah,
you said intelligibility, you went ahead and said, yeah, intelligibility comes from within,
from a mind.
from my mind, from a mind, from my mind or your mind or something
Yeah,
like that.
that was the conversation. Yeah.
So from that, he's going to try to imply, well, what you're agreeing into is that there's a greater mind that modulates that,
Right,
because and that just says that you believe in God,
right.
and
Now,
that's not what you're saying at all.
what you just said was his argument,
Right.
and I don't think that makes any sense at all. But like I don't get it. Right, and I mean, is that a good way to think? I mean, is that
I understand. I guess I understand the thinking behind it. I understand the thinking behind it, but there's a few problems. It's circular. For one thing, you're assuming there's a mind. Hey, I have a mind, therefore a mind exists, and it's called God. That's circular. You're pretty much assuming the conclusion. You know,
I'm losing you?
sorry about that, man. I
Yeah.
got bad connection. Yeah,
But
it's just
what you're
circular.
saying, Scott, is exactly what I think was going on. And that, when you're arrogant about it, I could probably even tolerate it if it's kind, you know.
Or in a question form.
But when you come at it like, well, that means you believe in God.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
No. It's kind of like your topic of the show, like about morality. One of the things that they do is they use this presuppositional and transcendental argument for God, and they'll say, "Hey, Lou, you know how you were telling Angelo, if you saw somebody getting hurt or killed unjustly, you'd both feel bad about that. You'd both sort of say that was wrong, right?"
Right.
Just here in America, they exist. It's wrong anywhere you go in the universe. It'd be wrong for a person to be, a child, like say an extreme case, like they always like to use the baby getting raped or whatever for fun.
For fun. Yeah. I like that part.
Babies being raped for fun is wrong no matter what part of the universe you go to, right? And so
Yeah.
we'd all, of course, agree to that. So what they'll say is they'll say, well, because you agree to that, what you're saying is that even outside of your own mind or your own presence, that morality holds. But you also say that morality comes from minds. But yet this moral code exists no matter where you go in the universe, whether you're there or not, or whether humans were even there or not, right? And we all agree. So therefore, you believe in God because God is that mind that we're talking about. God is defined as
Right.
that mind, that moral lawmaker.
Right. Now, the way you're explaining that argument actually makes more sense than the way he was explaining the argument. You see, because I could relate and understand that point of the argument more than what he was saying, which seemed to be like an arrogant, you know,
Right.
a putting down, you know.
Yeah, an
And
insult.
let me tell you something. I'm not. I think I'm a gentleman. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I have a street background.
Yeah.
And when you come in talking trash, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, nah.
Right. You're gonna reject it. You're not gonna accept that kind of crap. You don't have to, because why do you need to put up with that garbage?
That's kind of it, you know. But with the argument you just gave, which I think makes sense, where that one breaks down for me is you haven't proven the one premise.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like something there that yes, I can assume it, I can presuppose it, but I may not assume that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's where it breaks down to me.
It breaks down to me because you can always have counters. Like if you can always replace God with somebody else, like, okay, God can be, it's possible there's a God that is behind the morality that's universal, but then so could a Platonic form, which is
Right.
not a God at all. It's just kind of like a Hilbert space of morality. Or let's say it could be, I don't know, the laws embedded in nature. Somehow they reside in the quantum field of probabilities. That's not a God, but it's
Right.
a natural thing that can also explain how that universal morality exists. There's so many different, if you really use your imagination, you can come up with a myriad of different explanations. Picking your favorite explanation over the other ones, and it's
Right.
probably better to just say, I don't know.
Right. You see, because it's like another way I see that type of argumentation. The way I see it is like you're just plugging in this concept you have and then saying, see, it's like, you do believe in minds, right? Yeah. Okay. We agree on that.
Hmm.
But then saying, well, you know, now when I describe God as the mind that oversees all minds, and now I make the God fit into that.
Hmm.
And then I say, well, see, you believe in the God.
Yeah.
It's not really.
Not really, because also too, smuggled into that is all these other attributes he hasn't really established. Okay, let's say for some reason maybe you accept that. But how do I know that that same God came to earth and died on a cross for my sins and all of that? Which God is it?
Oh
It
yeah,
doesn't.
we haven't
Right.
even gotten to that yet.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like there's
No.
so much you have to really overcome that the whole thing sort of falls apart before it gets off the ground. You have to establish so much first. Like you said, you haven't really showed me the entity first. You haven't showed me that God yet. And so it really just boils down to faith and belief, and like you said, that's fine if that's what this person needs, or it makes sense for him to believe it that way. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? You can't do nothing about that. um, but everybody's different, and so I think everybody should just respect each other and say, you know what, I don't need to browbeat Lou down. Oh,
Yeah, you're like fading out and coming in here and there.
oh, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I try to be nice. I like to have, but a long time ago, I was a street guy.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, don't come in here with that garbage.
Yeah, you're gonna get dealt with. Or straight up.
I mean, I know it's crazy, but that's
No,
kind of like, you
I
know,
feel you, man. I was kind of the same way too, coming up as a young guy, man. I had a temper. I really wasn't open to a whole lot of garbage like that, and I would just recognize the bullshit when it comes up, and I was all about dealing with it, and not the most, you know, pretty ways, maybe in violent ways, maybe in ugly ways, and it was a real bad part of me back then, and so I get it. I understand, and that's the thing about this internet world, man. Everybody's a, keyboard warrior.
well, that's it. And the thing is, there's things, like we evolve and we evolve as people, even in the course of our lifetime, right? But there's still instincts that are part of our past. Okay.
Yeah.
And basically, it's like if you're on the street and some guy comes rushing in and he's putting you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might fight or flight, maybe.
Right. Right. And
But
hey, those are the
it's like
codes, man. That's the code of the street. If
street code, right?
street code, if
And I'm
somebody's coming at you like that, you're not supposed to just back down or run away. You're supposed to deal with that person, because that's what he's telling you is, I'm coming after you aggressively. Now your job is to snuff that dude out,
right.
you know.
And that's kind of the instinct I get when a guy comes in and is just giving me stuff that I just am like,
Yeah.
I don't even want.
Want to go there, right? You don't want to pull up those feelings. And the thing too is, to me, because we to like say stuff behind someone's back or where you couldn't get reached, that was kind of like for us in our day, that was like a real, bitch move or punk move. Whereas
Yes.
today, everybody thinks they can just come online and start talking all this mad crap to you. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have the honor to face me to say this stuff. You can just say it on the other side of a screen, and that doesn't prove anything, you know.
No.
That just shows how less of a character you are, you know. You have no heart, no character, nothing. You just all talk and no respect, and that's the kind of stuff that used to get people killed, back in the
Yes.
day, man. That would get a
Yes.
person really messed up.
Yes. Because that's like a streetwise type of thing, you know.
Yeah,
There's certain
yeah,
things that you just don't do to another person, you know, unless you're expecting confrontation, right? You know, I'm not going to go up to someone and put them down and not expect them to be maybe confrontational, right?
right. You know, that's the culture we live in now. That's why everybody's so depressed these days, so angry, so lonely, because they spend too much time online arguing with each other about irrelevant things. And and that's what we do. We try to make open discussions where we can talk openly and kind of provide a really cool spot for everybody to talk and feel good to express themselves without being attacked. The last thing you need is some clown to jump in and start browbeating the hell out of you and shit.
Right. And I think that was the point was and I know, you see, this is the thing. I know I'm not the smartest man in the world or the smartest tool in the shed, right? But I know something, you know what I'm saying? And then someone comes in and just wants to, you could tell the intention is to try to make you look foolish, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually an attempt to to actually talk about the subject. It's to make you look foolish.
Right.
And I don't really have time for that. And that's kind of what came out there.
Yeah. I get it. I'd probably respond the same way. It's ego. It's the ego driven people. They really think their egos are so important. They have to assert themselves, and the way you do that is you have to put the other guy down. You have to destroy his ego in front of the crowd. If you can destroy him in front of his own audience
Right.
and make him look like a fool, then you've just asserted your ego over him, and now I can go pee on somebody else's tree.
Yeah. It makes
That's their I'm telling you, that's the only motive they have. They don't care about truth. They don't care about your salvation. They don't care nothing about you.
yeah. I totally agree. They want to be right because because to be right for them is so important to their identity.
Yep.
You know, it's like their ego is so blown up. It's like, you know, it's kind of like a bully mentality, right? It's
Yep.
like I could beat up this guy and then somehow that makes me look good. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And I could feel good about myself. And that type of mentality I tried to do away with a long time ago.
It's childish.
You know what I mean?
And
It's like,
unfortunately, a lot the downside of religion, like we can talk about all the great things Christianity's done, and and I'm not going to take anything away from good Christians, but one of the things, the ugly sides of it that I've noticed, because I was one of them, you already know my story, is that you kind of have to, it's kind of part of it. You have it's just part of the game, man. You need to convert people. That's your work. That's what Jesus, directed you to do, is to be a witness, to be a preacher, proclaim the truth boldly, and make converts like the Apostle Paul did, and all these heroes of the Bible. And, that's kind of an ugly side to it because and I used to always believe, like I told you, I was really operating from a place of love, but that was just what I was telling myself. Because when I look back at it, man, I must have been a jerk, man. I must have been a real jerk because most people weren't listening to me anyways. So why was that?
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's an ugly side to it that we have to evolve out of that, man. We have to be more secure in our beliefs and understand, people are different or whatever, if that's really what we're after. But I mean, it has to be done civilly, and we have to really just show love, man. We just have to show love towards each other. Otherwise, this society is just gonna crumble, man. This internet stuff is just gone off the chain, man. There's so much negativity, and I had somebody take my likeness that they got off my channel and just wrote all this bad stuff about me on top of it and put it out there in public. Like, why? Because they didn't agree with my opinions.
Well, you know what? I was thinking about that because now I'm doing this YouTube thing, and
Hmm.
I'm sure there's going to be someone making fun of me, and I
Yeah.
kind of that I'm going to consider a badge of honor in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. You might as well. Because, if you're triggering people like that, there must be a reason why. You must be doing something right.
You know what I mean? It's like honestly, on my YouTube channel, I get, I was saying this before earlier, but I get comments about my rotten teeth, and I have really rotten teeth.
Mm,
So I'm not now. It doesn't
right.
bother me because it's me.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
I mean, it's it's
That's
it's not
childish.
that important to me. It's like it is what it is. All
Right.
right, but somehow I think that they think that will bother me, but it doesn't. And it's like, I really don't care. It's like, I don't care if you like my teeth.
It's really just a sad thing, that people try to hurt each other, online. For one thing, it kind of exposes something about human nature, though. That just means there's a good portion of us that the only thing keeping us away from hurting each other and insulting each other is distance, you know. And this lets you know people would love to hurt each other. And now that they have the distance between them, that's exactly what. Ah, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm losing you.
Yeah, I'm gonna
But
pop off here, but yeah, go
one
ahead,
one
Lou.
thing that I was thinking about after I had my incident with chasing that guy out.
Yeah.
All right. I because I do self-reflect, I like to think. And I'm like, he said, well, now you're triggered, right? And I'm
Hmm.
thinking, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to self-reflect and saying, was I wrong? And I don't think I was wrong.
No.
All right. Because it's not like, I mean, I feel like on my stream, because that's the thing, it's my stream, right?
Hmm.
It's like I can control my stream to a point where if I feel someone is arrogant and just insulting and this sort of thing, I reserve the right to get rid of them.
Oh yeah. My motto is um block soon and block often. Um I don't let anybody take my peace away, man. Even if it makes me look like I'm triggered and running away from an argument or whatever, I don't care. If that gives them an ego boost, so be it. I don't care. I don't live in their head. I live in my head.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think I'm a person who runs away from an argument.
Right.
Like I don't think I'm that person. So
Well, they count on they see that's the thing on in this online YouTube world universe. The more a person can be triggered, quote unquote, that's the sign of you've won the argument in their opinion. Like it's the Matt Dillahunty thing with the other guy, I forget his name, Christian guy, and he attacked him on his trans issue, and then Matt got up and
yeah,
walked away, and the whole internet went crazy about it and said, yeah, Matt got owned, he got triggered, and
right.
so everybody tries to do that now, try to trigger each other, and it's like a sign of winning. So they always want to say, hey, are you triggered? Am I getting a win here?
I've noticed that so much. There's a
Yeah.
couple of guys I like see around that, and this is really like bothersome to me because it's exactly what you're speaking about. It's
Mhm.
like they're extremely rude and obnoxious, and people love that. It's
Yes, the
like,
Trump effect, man.
it's like I mean, and honestly, Matt to me has changed. Like he used to be more tolerant, right?
Hmm.
But now when you watch him, he's he'll be very abrasive.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And I think people like that. You know?
Yeah, they do.
And I see there's a couple of Christian apologetic types, not real apologists, but just people who, are offering their opinions and
Hmm.
building a following. And I, I, they're just rude to everybody.
Oh yeah. There's a real famous guy, Darth Dawkins. He goes by a few different names, but Darth Dawkins is his main name, and he is very rude. He does the precept script on everybody, but he's very annoying about it, and he's always telling you, "Don't overtalk me." Like he'll ask you a question if you go on too long. Don't overtalk me, and he'll overtalk you all the time. And when you
Right.
try to say something about it, he jumps at you and like, "Don't overtalk me. I already told you. What are you, some kind of idiot? What are you, stupid? Can you hear or not?" He always throws in insults, and people love him. Like I know a lot of Christians feel like he's their hero. He's like, "Oh, finally, we've got someone who can defeat the atheists," because he
That's what I'm
knows,
talking about.
yeah, yeah,
That type of idea is like, when you can be aggressive, all right, and because you're aggressive, people think, oh, that guy knows what he's talking about.
right, right, exactly. It's a false sense of skill. You have no skill. That's not a skill. That's
Yeah,
just
it's just
you're just
being
being an asshole.
aggressive, interrupting everybody. You know, I don't look at that as a good form of communication at all.
Mm-mm.
And I know what that's about, and it's really bullying.
Yeah,
It's really what it is,
that's
you
all it
know.
is.
And I think having been there, done that as a young man, I'm
Yeah.
just not going to put up with that in my little channel, you know.
No, no way, man. And it really reveals a low bar perspective. When your perspective can't be challenged, it can't be questioned, and it requires you to use threats and abuse and language and stuff. Then it's a low bar epistemology. There's no epistemology there. It's like they just want to insert and impose their ideas on you without question. You don't have a right to question it, and if you do, you're stupid. It's a bullying tactic. And high bar perspectives are those that are open to criticism, open to discussion, open to where they could be wrong. Um, do things like steel man. Like I told you before, I debate atheists as Christian. I debate Christians as atheists. I do it all ways just so I can know that I understand each side of these arguments, just for fun, not to hurt anybody or anything. I usually tell people it's not important what I believe. I don't want this to be personal. Let's just deal with the arguments. Let's deal with the logic. Let's test that out. If that's your game, we can play the game. It's fun. But it doesn't have to be personal. At the end of the day, these debates don't prove anything. They don't really move the needle in any way, you know.
Right.
They don't. It's just a chess game. That's all it is.
Yeah, and it is fun. It should be fun, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, you know, I mean, I don't expect people to change because I have an opinion, and I don't change my opinion because someone has an opinion. My way of thinking will change if I see that you made points that are very valid,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will change,
Yeah.
because I'm not stuck. I mean, but the whole presuppositional thing, I don't think they're making any point at all.
No, they're not.
It's like, what?
It's like the worst. It's the worst form of apologetic they've ever thought up. I don't understand it either. It's like, okay. It's like, so you're gonna gaslight me now? So that's your point? Okay, great.
Yeah, and it's like, oh well, what in the world did you just prove? They're like, nothing. It's like, I mean, to me, the only thing they're proving at all is they think they're right and they're going to insist they're right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's it. You got it. That's the whole argument, and that's what they tell you. Just stay on the point. Don't veer off it. Just keep pounding them and browbeating them until they admit they don't have an answer that's satisfying you, and then claim victory. It's like real stupid. And it's kind of like that argument. I think it's called the contingency argument, where they'll say, well, if you can imagine a God, if you can imagine the greatest possible being, then it's got to be true.
I've heard
Because you
that
can
already.
imagine it. If you can imagine it, it must be true in some universe. And if God is the God of all universes, then there must be God. So God is proven.
I have heard that argument, and I really have heard that, and that to me is one of the silliest arguments I've ever heard.
Yeah. So, and I was arguing one guy, and we had a formal debate, and he was using that, and he was like, well, let me ask you. I'll prove it's true. Let me ask you, is there a tallest tree? And I'm like, I'm sure there is. Okay, I won.
Right.
That was it. He refused to go on. He says, "No, I've already won. You've conceded. I've won."
Right. That's how silly the whole thing is. It's like
what?
It's like I have talked to people not online but in person.
Yeah.
Where they're like, well, there is a universe. You agree? Yeah. Okay, that means God exists. It's like, it's that simple.
We can all go home now. Yeah, it's really, I don't know. And I'll be honest with you. There is an intuitive side to me that just rejects all that, because I don't want all my questions answered. Really, I think if all my questions, especially the big ones, are answered that simply, that kind of makes life boring, don't you think? Like, okay, so now it's like, where's the fun in that?
Yeah, you want to think about things. You want to understand. That's why I was trying with that guy to understand what he was saying.
Right.
But it's just like, no, you're just trying to overwhelm. It's like you're not, you're just trying to make me look stupid.
Of course.
And if that's your intention, I'm a streetwise guy.
Yeah. You're out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're out of here. Like, that's in the story right there.
I didn't get like an honest intention. You know what I mean?
No. And I know this guy, Catholic traditionalist. he does that. He pops on different channels. I'm even surprised he hasn't jumped on my channel to do the same thing. But he jumps on different podcasts, different channels, and he runs that same script to people. I mean, it's redundant. And he
Yeah.
only does, and he usually looks for new guys because all the older guys kind of know his shtick, and they already know, so they know how to deal with him. So he just kind of avoids them. There's another guy like that you might watch out for. His name is Red Robin.
Yeah, I haven't encountered him yet.
Yeah, he's a big one. Red Robin, Darth Dawkins, Catholic traditionalists. They're kind of the top guys I know about.
I have no problem with Catholic traditionalists, but
Yeah, not
I,
that
I
one.
just, no, don't come in and try to make me look like a fool, and just roll over and now you just said you believe in God.
No.
Like, I don't think I said that.
And then insisting, you did. Are you trying to now? You try. Well, what did he say? You need to refute me.
Yeah.
If you didn't say that, then refute me. It's like, what? I don't have to refute you. Refute what? You haven't made a point. You're
Yeah.
just telling me what I believe. Like, I'm just telling you I don't. So
Yeah.
refutation complete.
Yeah, it's nuts. And yeah, the presuppositionalist is something I'm encountering now, like way more than in the past.
Yeah.
So it's strange. It's like years ago when I became an atheist and I had a different take than Christians. Most of the Christians I talked to were talking differently. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there are these people that just like, it's like, well, I'm right because I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's like there's no way I'm wrong. And that's like the arrogant part of it. And I'm just like, it just doesn't, it's like, really, that's where the apologetics has come to.
Yeah, it's gotten really bad. One of the guys that made it really popular was this guy named Cy Ten Bruggencate. He's a Canadian Christian, and he's run the precept argument to death. And his big thing, his big shtick, he'd get kicked off everybody's channel or whatever, because what he would do is he would keep asking you the same question over and over. But how do you know? And he would just do that through the whole debate, because his whole thing was, so how do you account for rationality and knowing what's possible and impossible? And someone would say, and he goes, do you do it with or without God? And someone would say, well, I do it without God. Okay, how do you know? And then they go, well, because I know. Okay, well, how do you know that?
Right.
And he would just play that game through the whole conversation, and people would just eventually they'd have to remove him.
Yeah. And that type of argument can go both ways.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's that type of argument is just who's more aggressive than the other person.
Yeah, who gets the foot in the door first? Like, see, his whole thing was, well, I will say God is how I know. Now your turn. How do you know? And he said, well, how do you know God? Because God. That was his only thing. Because I know because of God. How do you know?
And the presupposition is God.
Right, is God.
Well,
so it's circular. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just saying God because I insist in God, and that's it.
That's it.
And
right.
And that's the arrogant part to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's just not something I really want to engage with too much,
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, after a while, it gets really boring, and and their whole idea is to get you upset. They want to see you fly off the handle, get triggered, so they can turn around and say, "Oh, you're triggered. Looks like I won. Bye."
Right.
And then they leave.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
And that's why I stopped after I got rid of that guy. I'm thinking, well, did I do something wrong? And then I'm like, no. He's coming on my channel, doing something that is just, you can't come on and just act like a moron.
Right.
It's like, there's just something not right about that.
Yeah.
Not that
It's
I wish anything bad on him. It's just like, it's like that street thing comes out.
mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, who are you talking to?
Yeah, who the hell are you
Who do
talking
you
to?
think you're talking to?
Right. Exactly. Man, yeah. I was so interested. That was the last thing I thought when because I saw you were live. I popped on. I said, "Oh, Lou is on, so let me check that out." And man, I'm hearing Catholic traditionalists sitting there browbeating you. I'm like, "Oh my God, what has he gotten himself into tonight?" And I was like, I knew how that was going to go.
Well, as we would say in the streets, I threw his ass out.
That's right, you did. You threw him right out, man. As he should be. Well, look, man, I'm gonna head on out, man. I appreciate the convo as usual.
All right, appreciate you. And
Yeah, man.
I'll never forget that when I just started doing this, one day I was out on my porch, and you gave this incredible, eloquent argument. I don't know if you remember that. I said, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah,
I was-
sometimes I get into those philosophical viewpoints and stuff. Yeah.
I felt like saying to the guy, "Yeah, what he said."
Yeah, what he said, man. Well, I'm glad you appreciated it, brother.
All right.
All right, man. You have a
Thanks,
good
man.
night, Lou.
You too.
All right.
So, gonna post this link one more time to see if anyone wants to talk. Again, conversation. Here's the link if anyone wants to talk. Got a little while longer before I have to move on. But if you want to talk, you can come in. All right. Theist, atheist, anything is free. All right. Just don't think you can be insulting and act crazy and that sort of thing, because that's just not right to me. Just in a it's not right to be rude, right? You can be heated, even you can be passionate, but you don't have to put people down, because that I just find is something I don't want to go there. All right. And I am an old guy, but I came from the streets. So I could sense, there's an intuition when you're trying to put people down, and it's not going to work in this house. But if anyone wants to talk, come on in. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up. All right. Well, I'll wrap it up. Like I always say, if you're on here, if you watch and you find something interesting, please subscribe. All right. That's just to have fun. I like to have fun on here. All right. I'm not making money. I'm not a professional. I just really like to enjoy conversation and, stimulate my own mind and maybe stimulate other people's minds. So if you want to think, if you find value in thinking about things, subscribe, like, and hope to see you again. Have a good night.